Welcome everybody back to Boost in Motion, guys. And today, I have a subscriber that asked me this question. They asked me, "Can you make a video about people who want to purchase a used VR30, Q50 or Q60, 2016 or 2017?" And I thought about it to myself, and I said, I talked about leasing, which is right here, leasing the Q50, Q60, and just the terms and the conditions, and just giving a breakdown about it. And I've talked about the maintenance or the common issues with a VR30. You can check this card here. But what I didn't talk about is the typical amount of money you might need to spend to maintain a VR30. And they wanted to just know what could be the rough breakdown on the cost of just ownership and through my own experience. So this is why I'm making that video. So before I get into it, guys, hit that subscribe button with the bell notification. I put a lot of videos out on the VR30, Q50, Q60 models. And also I talk about my 3.7 love for my fellow brothers. Let's get into it. All right, guys. So I had my VR30 for about a little over a year now. And I'm going to come up to 10,000 miles of service, right? And when I sat down, I thought about it. Our motor is new enough that we don't really have a good status of knowing long-term ownership yet, guys. So I don't know when you guys may watch this video, because this video might be watched a year later from now. This is 2018. And what I'm realizing is it's just like any other cars. They're making these cars way more reliable in the sense of you don't really have to do too much of it. Second, it's a Japanese brand, so they usually make cars just a bit more simpler compared to the German cars, and or even some American cars are relatively easy to maintain too. So let me just give my rough breakdown. All right, let's talk about the fluids, right? Let's talk about engine oil. 020, 530, relatively cheap to find this oil in a full synthetic. And also on top of that, the oil filter, really easy to find, cheap. So all in all, a typical oil change, if you change it on your own, $20 to $35, depending on the amount of quarts you get, unless you go to like a Royal Purple or some other kind of oil. But I get a basic Mobile One, go to Walmart, get it on discount for like $21, full synthetic, and I get an oil filter for another $10, $30. Jack the car up myself, unscrew it, change the oil, that's it. Didn't need to go and pay anybody to do it. But if you are going to go somewhere, they should not charge you any extra money for it. If you know some of these places, these Jiffy Lubes, whatever, bring your own oil if you really want, and bring them the thing and just pay them the labor to do it, whatever the case might be. But it should be a regular, easy oil change, nothing crazy. All right, let's talk about coolant. Once again, like any other car, coolant, we have two coolant systems. We have the coolant system for the car, the regular radiator, and then we also have the coolant system for the heat exchanger. Once again, just like any other car, coolant systems don't really need to be changed for like hundreds of, like, I don't say hundreds of thousands of miles, no, but tens of thousands of miles. Coolant usually just breaks down over time. I can't give you a time interval, but unless you have a leak where a coolant hose has to be repaired, yo, drive it. Just make sure you always watch your temps, and I would say roughly anything past that 60 to 100,000 miles, definitely change your coolant if you're doing that much. But usually something fails, such as a hose might start to leak or crack over time, whatever the case might be. The heat exchangers, once again, it doesn't really go through much heat cycling. The heat exchangers, yes, they do come from a cool temp to a hot temp relatively quick, but it's not like the coolant, which stays at that 190 to 230 or 220 Fahrenheit, whatever the case might be, all around, and always going through so much heat cycles and coming from 0 to up. So once again, I believe that's probably serviceable with the coolant, but that's way down the line. Let's move on. Let's talk about power steering fluids. Some of the 2016s and even the more newer models may still have power steering. So once again, easy thing to do. You don't even have to. What I used to do on my older cars is I wouldn't even drain the whole system for that. It doesn't make sense if you have a power steering, because then you're going to dry off the pump. What I usually do is use a turkey baster or any type of siphon, open the power steering hose, and I would like suck out with a pump or whatever the case might be, or a siphon, or a turkey baster, whatever you want to do. And then once it's empty, I will pour new coolant fluid, power steering fluid in, turn the car on, let it run, give it a few turns, because now that moves around the coolant. And then I will do that about 2-3 more times in the next 10-15 minutes. until I got enough oil out that some of the new oil got mixed in with the older oil. That's just an easier way to do it, and it's cost efficient to you, and you can do it yourself. But for some of the people who don't have power steering like me, DAS, that's one less bill that we have to pay for. But we'll talk about that later. Next thing, the next fluids we want to talk about is transmission fluid. Once again, Nissan Infiniti said this is an unserviceable transmission fluid. I don't know what to say about this, because a lot of the older G37s had the 7-speed and they're still on the road. Some of these people doing 200,000 miles, and I don't know what issues they're running into. I haven't really heard anybody having a slip-in transmission on their 2011, 2010 yet when they switch over to the 7-speed. So I would leave this as one of those things that, yes, if you should definitely change it if you're going to purchase the car used. Change it. There's no way to check the fluid in the transmission transmission. What you usually do is you go to the bottom of transmission pan, you unscrew it, the fluid comes out, and depending how much you catch and the basin that you would use, it would measure out how much it holds. Once all of it drains out, some of it's still going to be in the transmission cooler. There's like a little pump thing or reservoir where you're supposed to like pump the transmission fluid back in there based on how much came out. And that is pretty much your drain and fill. There's other ways of doing, like they say, like a pump. You can do a flush. What they usually do is disconnect it from the from the radiator, the transmission cooler, which is pretty much the same thing as the radiator. You have the radiator sits at the top, and then you have the transmission cooler that's usually at the bottom. And they'll put something in line there, and then they'll turn the car on, and then they'll just pump fluid in and just flush it around. You can do that system too. Transmission flushes usually are expensive because they use some kind of device. It's usually over $100 something. So if you guys choose to do it that way, which is probably the only way to really do it, because I doubt they would do it the other way. Some of these places rather just find it cheaper and easier to do it that way. That should be over $100. The transmission fluid was kind of expensive because I do remember I didn't change it on my 7-speed Q50 one, but I remember the fluid being like $7-8 a quart, and you need like 8 to 10. I could be wrong though. So guys, drop a comment below to let me know. Just correct me. I want the guys to give the proper information. But anyways, let's continue. All right, so then you got the transfer case. Transfer case is usually basic ATF. That stuff lasts quite a long time. It's full synthetic. It's last time I remember dropping I didn't drop it, but I checked the fluid color and it was still nice and pink. And my Q50 got about 20,000 miles. It was still pink. And the G I had, once again, it was still pink. Front diff and rear diff. For some of the guys who rear diff, I noticed that you should change the color of your rear diff fluid changes after like 5 to 10,000 miles. It gets dark after like 5-10,000 miles. Because remember, we have a rear wheel drive biased car, so the rear diff is always going to be engaged and moving. The front ones will be, but not as much, and they don't go through a lot of high torque and a high amount of heat. So the front diff, gear oil will always be a lot lighter because it just does less work. So my recommendation, once again, that fluid's cheap to get. I think it's 75W, or you go to 80W, 90, or whatever the case might be. But that's relatively cheap. It's about a quarter to. It's really easy to change if you want to change on your own. But once again, it's another service. It shouldn't be too expensive. It shouldn't be nothing extravagant that they can't do. All right, that talks about all the fluids for the Q50 and Q60. Now let's talk about brakes and tires and rotors. The brake pads, once again, relatively cheap. These brake pads on this car, for the non-sport, we're talking about the non-sport, are they're cheap and interchangeable. You can go to AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts, any regular parts store. They should be able to have these in stock. If they say, no, we don't have the Q50 ones, say, listen, guys, do you got the G37 non-sport brake pads? They're like, yeah, we have that. Use those. Nissan Infiniti uses the same brake pads from when they released the front dual piston floating calipers. It's the same. So once I realized that, I was like, I don't really have to buy Q50 brake pads. Like, I'll just buy the G37 370Z brake pads. It's the same thing. Also, for my people who have the sport calipers, If they say we don't have the sport caliper brake pads in that, you'll say, well, let me get the G37 370Z. It's the same brake pads. All right, guys. Rotors, once again, relatively cheap, very common to find on non-sports, nothing too crazy. And same thing for the big brake rotors and everything. Relatively easy, nothing too expensive. All in all, non-sport rotors were about, I think, $40 each, and the sport ones were like 50, 60, depending on where you go. You might get them cheap online, but yeah, a brake job could probably run you, if you wanted to change all four with brake pads. My front brake pads, well, I usually get the Hawks or whatever, more performance oriented, but I remember them being cheaper. Like I got like a Pro Act, I can Beno brake pads from Advanced Auto Parts. And what I usually like to do is wait till they use their promo codes, and I just use the 10 to 15% off. They were about 60 something dollars. I just used that and use the promo code, and it brought it down to like $40, $50. So that's the front. Use them for the rear. So rear brake pads are probably under $100. Rotors all the way around. Once again, try to use a promo code or find like maybe an online store. Try to get that under 150 if you can, or just change what you can. Sometimes you guys don't need to change the rotors. You just might need to change the brake pads. And let's get off of that. Let's go into tires. If you have the sport, if you have 19-inch wheels, 19, 20-inch wheels, whatever the case might be, probably 19s, you do not have to go back to the to the run flat tires. Run flat tires are going to cost you $200-$300 per tire. Guys, you do not have to go and get that. You can get the regular non-repeat, non-run flat tire. But here's the problem that you guys are going to always run into. You have no spare. So you have two ways to alleviate that. Well, three ways. First way is try not to hit potholes and try not to get nails in your tire. You guys are going to do that. It happens. Two, what I did was I purchased a fifth tire. Yeah. You can check that link here. I talked about BARUM tires. I actually purchased a fifth tire. So just in case I have a blowout, even though I do have like a 1-year warranty through Champion Tires, wherever tires I forgot what I ordered from. If just in case that's up, I always have a fifth tire, and I actually bought that tire on discount, whatever the case might be. I bought it used, and it's the same brand, but I just bought it used off of eBay for like $40, $50. I checked it, no nails, no nothing. Just use it as keep it in storage just in case. Or the third thing you could do is you can purchase a spare tire and wheel. I'm not saying brand new is expensive, but if you really want to, you can do that from Infinity. Or what you can choose to do is you can buy the spares from G37s and G37 coupes and sedans if you want, because they also use 19-inch or 17-ish, or you can use the spare for the 17s. It should be the same size. I believe the coupes do have the 18-inch spare, so that may be a little different size-wise than the 17-inch spare. Yeah, 17-inch spare that is used in used for the sedans. So just double check that, guys. Comment below what your setup may be. I talked about brakes. I talked about rotors. Oh, wow, I didn't even talk about brake fluid. Most of the time, no one really changes their brake fluid, but once again, if you really want, you can suck some out and put some in, but to do a proper brake job, you would have to bleed the whole system. Unless you guys are changing out the whole rotors and putting, whole brake calipers and putting a whole new brake caliper in, don't even worry about the brake fluid. Just make sure that you top it off whenever it starts getting a little lower. You don't want it to go dry. And also, if it keeps going down, that means you're eating up brake pads. So, guys, you should be changing your brake pads. Otherwise than that, we are not at that point where a lot of stuff has just started to fail. Brake master cylinders aren't really failing yet. Some radiators aren't start having leaks in it yet. Like a lot of things, these cars are so fairly new that you guys are gonna have to wait a little while to see what are going to be some of the, I don't want to say it's troublesome, but some of the ways of maintaining it and or some of the cost of ownership. So I can move on to right now, like the amount of gas I use. It's not a fuel efficient car, guys. It's a twin turbo V6. So it being a twin turbo V6, I'm getting roughly in Brooklyn, New York, 11 to 14 miles per gallon. This is stop and go traffic. when I do drive on the highway, or sometimes I did drive and went through a full tank, I was averaging between 20, 24, of 65 to 75 miles an hour. I'd have gone up to like 26, 27 on longer trips, but on 93, that's pretty much it. And that's before the JB4, unless I want to drive a little faster. But all in all, that sounds to me, it's just like any other car. A lot of repairs are really, I would say they're easy to repair. It shouldn't take any a mechanic shop to do any of these jobs. It shouldn't take all day. This is not like working on other European cars where you have to remove so much brackets and clips and everything to the point that it's time consuming. You know what I'm saying? It's relatively easy. The fluids are all usually in stock at your auto parts store. One of the reason why I started this channel is because I want some of you guys just to do some of the basic maintenance on your car on your own if you can, and try to do it the right way. Because, you know, I used to work in the automotive field, so I know the cost and labor of like having to like pay for something, or no, on my end had to pay it in the past. I was like, I'm not paying somebody to change my oil. Sometimes if you got like a cheap car and you didn't care, you just want them to put conventional oil in there, $20, $30 spot, you don't care. But usually with newer cars, some of these places you go, they'll be like, oh, well, you have a 2016 VR30. Well, you should use this oil and get this filter and get a flush. And then you'll spend $150 on an oil change. For what? Doesn't make sense. It's a freaking oil change, guys. It doesn't make sense, okay? All in all, I'm gonna just close the video here. That will be just a good sense of what some of the regular wear and tear items should cost, and or how easy the job should be. But the next few videos, I'm going to talk about maybe even purchasing Q50 Q60 used, and what you should be looking to pay, and or how you should pay for it. But if you would like to see that type of video, please comment below, hit a like button. This video doesn't have too much energy today because I'm getting back from I had a really bad back pain. I pinched my sciatic nerve, so I literally couldn't even sit like this for quite a while. And I was in enough pain, and I was just making enough videos for you guys. But I'm feeling a lot better now. And just keep sending me some more questions. You can contact me at boostinmotion on Instagram, boostinmotion on Facebook. My Facebook is still messing up. I'm not getting the messages on time. But otherwise than that, if you guys want me to want to come up with another topic, just comment below, and I'll try to make the video for you. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. You have a good day.